30 years ago, in 1984, IBM was the dominant industry player in the computer industry. It was regarded that it had grabbed all the market share of the computer industry. At that time, Apple, the new startup, declared a war against IBM. IBM was considered the big blue, as Steve Jobs described it. It was described as the big brother, as what George Orwell mentioned in his book 1984. At that time, Microsoft and Apple were only the small players in the industry. But then 30 years later, today, in 2013, Apple managed to grab a large market share of computer industry and the smartphone market. And it was considered as the big brother at this moment. However, Microsoft didn't manage to catch up and to get the glory of the industry. Why is it like that? Why didn't Microsoft manage to be the big brother? Why didn't Microsoft manage to grab the market share of the computer industry? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are the team from Lingnan University, and please allow me to kindly introduce ourselves. I'm Peter.
I'm Tom.
I'm Frankie.
Here's our agenda. We will first begin by telling you the background of Microsoft. And then we will move on to talk about the situation analysis. And after considering the situation analysis, we will propose some of the possible strategies that can fit the situation of Microsoft. And finally, we have got some future projection for the company. So here's the timeline, a little bit history recap of Microsoft. Microsoft was founded in 1975. And 20 years later, around in 1992, it introduced a flagship product, Windows 3.1. And after this, 7 years later, it introduced another prominent product, Microsoft Office 2000, and it has gained popularity among all the people around the world. 2 years later, in 2001, it introduced the Xbox, and it was considered as another core business that helped to sustain Microsoft company growth and profitability. And just last year, it has acquired Nokia as a way to expand to other markets. And now I will pass on to my team to further talk about the situation analysis to you.
Thank you, Peter. And here, we believe that the success in the past for Microsoft actually there are some internal factors. First of all, we can see that it has a leading online editing software, OneDrive. It means that it allows several or many people to edit the document online at the same time. It will give the customer some convenience and some efficiency. Second one is actually the purchase of Nokia gives advantages of mobile development for Microsoft, because Nokia have its experience and technology to develop and target as the low-end market, which means help Microsoft to target at the low-end market to get the market share. Also, it includes a patent, which means that it is a very valuable asset for the company. Third one is there is absolute advantages of Microsoft Office, because it is a dominant software for most of the people to handle their document and generate some document. And just recently, Microsoft sell its products in a method that give the customer with a restricted period of time. That means customers should renew their products each year, and it generates some additional revenue for the company. We also also noticed that there are some internal factors that will hinder the development. Firstly, the relationship of Microsoft and some apps developer are not good enough. Actually, there's the smartphone of Microsoft always lack some apps, and there are limited amount of apps, which will decrease the value and also make it its product become not so attractive to the customer. Secondly, Microsoft actually do not have a clear business model. It means that, for example, Microsoft's PC, phone, and tablets use the same operating system, but actually we know that there are the service given from different products give consumer different consumer experience. Third one is the corporate culture. As we know is that the Microsoft company implements the stack ranking system. The high performer usually are rewarded, and the low performer are punished or lets them to leave the company. It's not suitable for an industry that usually encourage creativity. The fourth one is Microsoft have low movement to seize the trends. Actually, when the cloud platform to develop in the industry, Microsoft noticed that, but it do not catch up or seize the opportunity immediately, and that's Amazon to get 70% of market share. There is some external factors that Microsoft can seize. First one is the development of cloud-first world. Cloud system platform usually offer people to do something such as storage, sharing, and distribution of some information. And it also allows company to distribute its product online. As you know that the smartphone or maybe some the phone, you actually do not use SD card in this century because the data are stored online. Second is the smartphone is a new lifestyle, which means that PC is not anymore devices that lets a customer to handle its things, because smartphone includes all these almost most of the function, and also encourage some communication and entertainment. There's no doubt that some external factors will make some challenge for the company. Firstly, there are lost control technology in the whole industry, and such as the copy and transfer of technology information. Secondly, is that the competition from other players, such as Google. They have developed the Google Drive, etc., and it makes the customer to have some loyalty to the company. Here, how can we use or utilize our stress opportunities and improve our business to make our development of a company? It will mention that in the strategy.
You may want to take a look at the perception map. And actually, Microsoft, at its core, its positioning is now in this area. The innovation level is moderate. However, the growth rate is pretty slow and is nearly saturated. So, by suggesting the following strategy, we believe we can achieve and help the Microsoft to attain this position, the start here, to achieve a relatively higher level of innovation while maintaining a relatively higher market growth. And by using this kind of graph, we can well illustrate what kinds of actions that Microsoft can undertake. Microsoft need to consider developing more new products to the existing market that can attain and retain the customers to maintain customer loyalty. That is the stage for product development.
And now comes to the strategy part. So how could Microsoft move on the ends of matrix and the perception map? The Microsoft company think the new world will be a mobile first and a cloud first world. And it requires its employers to focus on innovation. Besides, the new strategy of Microsoft is to become a device and service company. And from the situation analysis we have talked about, we have different strategies, and it's mainly in 3S. So what does 3S means? 3S means strive, succeed, and sustain. And it also stands for short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategy. For the strive part, we think the company should enhance its culture for innovation. It's very important for innovation. And for the succeed part, we have a clear business model, which is the Windows platform and the mobile capability. The last, for sustainability, we think it's very important to keep corporate governance on working as a team. In the detail, the culture for innovation. The share price of Microsoft remained stable. It stopped to climb and stopped to drop in recent 5 years. And it caused a very important thing, innovation, because the patent and technology are far from enough for future development. To have a culture for innovation, it comes up with one Microsoft strategy. It means that they will replace divisional goals by shared goals. All employers and employees, leaders and staffs, they will focus on one goal, and the goals will be divided levels by level. At last, we hope it could achieve a goal congruence. It could achieve a better execution, collaboration, and employee incentives.
Thank you, Kevin. And then let's talk about the Windows platform developments. So as what we have discussed it in the situational analysis, that the cloud platform is a rising phenomenon. So we should make use of the cloud platform, not just the OneDrive. How? That is, we can actually make use of the data sharing capability. So nowadays in our computers, there is a hard disk. But how can we make use of data sharing? Is that we will push the hard disk into the cloud platform. That is, no matter you access via your computer, your tablets, or your mobile phones, you can access the same data. Not just the photos or the videos, which is confined by the OneDrive concept. That is, there is no so-called hard disk, and the hard disk will put into the cloud platform, so that every data, not just the photos and videos, can be accessed by every device. And this is our concept. But this concept is different from nowadays the concept made by Microsoft. Nowadays, Microsoft, they combine the strategy of selling the Windows and the tablets. That is, they have the same operating system for the tablets and Windows. And for tablets, normally tablets is used for convenience, but for computers, it is used for productivity. So this concept is different. Instead, we suggest that there should be apps customized for the tablets and the Windows. With this kind of clear business model, that would boost the selling of the Microsoft Windows. And for the mobile capability, nowadays Microsoft acquires Nokia. And the acquisition of Nokia can help Microsoft secure the patents and improve its technology. Why? We can take a look of the rival Google. Google's recently purchased Motorola, and then it acquires a lot of patents. Because the patents can secure the competition between different firms. With the patents, they can further innovate. They can further make some innovative products and make use of the patents acquired from Nokia. And then, actually, Nokia is a long-developed firm, and Nokia has a very good relationship with the telecommunication firms, especially the firms in the Indian market. Why? Because in India, normally, Nokia sells about 45%, Nokia acquires about 45% of the shares in the classic smartphone market. So Nokia should have well-developed relationship with the telecommunication firms. So Microsoft can make use of this kind of partnership and then to sell more low-end devices in the Indian market or in the emerging markets with the partnership that is acquired from Nokia. And I will now pass the time to Calvin to talk about how to sustain the corporate governance with the innovation from cultures.
In the long run, how could Microsoft sustain? How could it gain its sustainability? We think corporate governance is very important to gain its sustainability. Microsoft started to use stack ranking system a long time ago, and following that, they will reward the high performers in the company, but for the low performers, they might have a risk to be invited to quit the job, to leave the company. This results in that a lot of employees are reluctant to work with brilliant other Microsofters, and it has very big problem for the long run development of Microsoft. This is the triple bottom line model, and it shows the three very important things for a company to be sustainable: people, profit, and planet. For people, we think that if Microsoft solves its corporate governance problem, they could be in the middle of this model, and they could achieve their sustainability.
And now we will talk about the effect of the implementation of the strategies. And then in the short run, the innovation in the culture may involve a loss of the operating cost, and then there may not be a good profit margin. But in the long run, there will be a large increase in the operating income brought by the innovation culture. And why? That's because, as you can see here, actually, it takes a long time to have the innovation in mind and change the corporate governance. So as you can see here, it takes a long time. And then it needs a lot of resources as well. And we need a lot of revenue expenditure to change the corporate culture. But in the long run, that would affect the Windows selling and the reform of the Windows and then the acquisition of Nokia. Because if there is innovation and change in the corporate structure, and then that will boost the innovation in different sectors. And in return, there will be a long-term goal congruence. And so that in terms of the Windows reform and then the acquisition of mobile, and actually there may be a high risk which you bear in mind, because the people, the general public, they may not accept the idea of cloud platform. That is to share the hard disk, all the hard disk data in a cloud platform, and they may think that it may not be secure. And we think that actually what the company can do is that they can have an alliance with some security firms like Kaspersky or Symantec, so that they can ensure the data security problem. And then that comes to the risk part, which will be discussed by my partner.
And actually, there's some risk that can possibly involve the liquidity risk. The acquisition of Nokia is pretty expensive, and it costs the company a lot. And so that can have a negative impact on the cash flow of Microsoft. And it does not really enjoy the first mover advantage in the mobile industry, and that are also some risks that can possibly involved. And finally, hopefully, after proposing the strategy that we suggested, we hope that can help Microsoft to sustain to be the big brother in the industry, and or at least the biggest brother of computer industry. That's all we have to say. Thank you very much.
calculation of the expenses as well as the revenue, what is the percentage of revenue that you expect to use? I mean, in terms of percentage of sales, how much is it? And what is the time taken to break even and then go to the profit?
Thank you for your question. Actually, this question has been discussed in our preparation, and then we think that in short run, it is about 5 years to break even, because there will be a large increase in the operating costs, because like we have to change the corporate governance and change the culture, change the stack ranking approach, and takes maybe a little bit long time, 5 years, in order to break even. And we think that may cost about 5 to 10% of the sales. Yes, and in the long run, there will be an increase in profitability, because as what my member Kevin has said, because under the triple bottom line, if we change the corporate governance and then we care about the people, and then people would value Microsoft as a very good employer. Like in the past, Microsoft ranked as the 8th in the best employer in the world, but now it's ranked 75. But why Google can rank as number 1 in the in the market? Because Google cares about your people. So we think with the change in the corporate governance, in the long run, there will be a boost in the revenue.
Is your business model going into the low-end market rather than the mass market or the middle income group?
Are you talking about the market that is related with the acquisition of Nokia?
Yes.
We think that actually because there is intense competition of the high-end market. Like for example, for the Android sector, Samsung is dominating parties, and we think that it will be risky for Microsoft to invest in that area. Instead, because Nokia is doing very well in the low-end markets, and there are many emerging markets like Bangladesh, like India in the world, and we think that by grasping these kind of markets and with the money, with the wealth of Microsoft, and with the long-term partnership of Nokia with different firms, and then that can help Nokia and Microsoft to revive.
And actually, for the high-end market, actually Apple and Samsung has already established their customer loyalty, and we believe it's hard for Microsoft as a late mover to catch up to compete with Apple and Samsung. Therefore, we believe Microsoft, after acquisition of Nokia, can consider targeting its consumers to the middle and low-end market.
Do you have any contingency plan if the suggestions you made fail?
Actually, we have also considered some of the risks that can possibly involved. For example, as what I've just mentioned, the acquisition of Nokia is pretty expensive, and it costs a lot of capital expenditure of Microsoft. And therefore, we believe Microsoft can also consider expanding to other businesses. For example, its export is pretty popular, and it may consider develop also other long-core businesses that can help to generate enough cash flow to sustain and finance its acquisition and the operation for the company.
And if the acquisition of Nokia is not good enough, we may actually do what nowadays Google is doing. For example, Google just sell out Motorola, but keep the patents and sell the whole mobile business to Lenovo. And actually, we think that actually the patent is the most valuable part in the acquisition. And actually, if the business model is not doing well with the acquisition of Nokia, Nokia can just keep the patents and sell the Nokia companies. Microsoft can sell Nokia to other companies, but keep the patents.
I would like to add up, although we have different alternatives for the business plan to go not well, but actually we think the trend of technology or technology industry is the mobile and also the cloud. So it will be still be our core business, and we believe it will be sustainable in the future.
You also mentioned corporate responsibility. Is there any green element built in your proposal?
In our CSR, we mainly focus on the people part, on the employee part, because there's a big problem on the stack ranking system of Microsoft. So we will suggest Microsoft to change this and make Microsoft to be work as a team and to have a collaborative on their goals.
Yes, and then with the collaborative structure, if they are doing well, actually they can also spare some resources on the green part. For example, like when we promote the cloud platform, and then actually we don't use the plastics, we don't use the package, etc. And actually this can boost the environmental sector as well. That is to have more green parts in the elements.
Just following up on your question on focusing on the people part, can you elaborate a little bit more on the strategy of driving that change in people strategy? What challenges do you foresee and how do you plan to tackle it?
Actually, in the past, and then Microsoft has its divisional goals strategy. That is, each division has its goals. And nowadays, they implement the one Microsoft strategy. And we propose that actually with our people part, we can do something more to goal congruence. That is, we will have a strategy that will be in line with the company goal, the division goal, as well as the each employee's benefits. Like what Google is now doing, and then they allow their employees to have some leisure time, like 5 or 10% of their working time to do their the innovative products, to do whatever they like, and that would help to reward the employees. And then for the risky part, actually because for the technology sector, and then there may be a little high risk in implementing a lot of products, and then the trend is changing time by time. So if the Microsoft allows its employees to allow employees to do its sell products, and then that will waste a lot of time in matching the going trend. This is the resources are a lot centralized, and that is the risk. And I think with the good time management and resource management, Microsoft can solve this kind of risk.
And I would like to add up for another challenge, since we are going to replace divisional goals by shared goals and make Microsoft working as a team, it might have a big problem in collaborating the whole company to work and to collect the different interests of different departments.
So how do you tackle that challenge?
Okay, for that, and for this problem, I think it's more important to motivate the employers' incentives, let them to have their own motivation in working in Microsoft. For example, in Google, the employees will have 10% of their time to working by themselves. They will have a more creativity, and I think you will have a more efficiency.
And actually, there are some companies also suggested allowed the employees to take a day off when it is their birthday. So that kind of measures can also help to retain the talents and the employees. And Microsoft can also consider providing more facilities, recreation activities for the employees to strengthen its cohesiveness of the team. So I think that can help to sustain and reinforce the bonding of the company.
Yeah, Peter have mentioned the internal policy and the method to improve the internal culture or the treatment for the employee. But for, there are also point is that Microsoft actually should show its goodwill in front of the public. How can it show the goodwill? Actually, a good example is that Google now is every year is promote a program that lets different people with the interest in developing in the IT industry to attend the workshop. Actually, in the workshop, Google can show its confidence and also the willing to accept more talent in its company and give them good treatment and also some encouragement. Actually, this can not only improve their image and also attract more talents to work for the company.
In the company, what you see is the most immediate core problem that we need to resolve to change the company. In terms of culture or product, what is the immediate action? This is the core problem that we need to do to change to make it.
And we think that the corporate culture problem is the most important thing that Microsoft should address. because as what I have mentioned in the presentation, with a better corporate culture that can improve the long profitability as well as the innovation in different sectors. Because nowadays there's a stagnation of innovation. Actually, this can be reflected by the stock price. The stock price, the stock price does not rise or decrease in this few years, and then Microsoft is a big company and it has a long history. And usually there will be a stagnation of innovation. With the change in the corporate governance and the corporate culture, there will be innovation in the companies, and then this can address many issues that we have mentioned in the previous parts.
So thank you very much, Lingnan. And you were saying